So apparently I forgot a setup step in my demo, so I just need to run it more quick.
Oh, it's probably fine. Live demo is always good.
There's usually never any problems with that, right?
Never. All right, round of applause for Mike Houston.
So show of hands, who's used Chef in their day-to-day work before? Okay, about 15, 20%. Who's heard of this idea of infrastructure as code? More, right? So you've heard of the idea, but you maybe haven't actually used it. Chef is really founded upon this idea of infrastructure as code. What we found when we started down this journey, and kind of just not Chef, but kind of the whole DevOps community, when we started to automate things, when we started to think of things as code, what ended up happening is that we ended up realizing that when you begin to treat things as code, when you begin to treat something and you put something into source control, then what you end up realizing is, well, people are collaborating on it, people are making multiple commits. Then if it's as code, what do we need to do as a developer? Well, we need to start writing tests. We maybe need to start doing continuous integration. Then we realize, well, maybe the way that we're doing things isn't the best way. Maybe we need to start building into test-driven development. Who does test-driven development in the code that they write? Wow, how many developers do we have in the room? A little bit more than that. So who are the bad developers and why aren't you doing test-driven development? So what we realized is that before the code was shared, we needed to figure out a way that we could begin to run tests and run tests locally to make sure that what you were going to share was going to be shared in the same fashion. It does what you actually wanted to do. And it's not going to, as Nathan said, break the build and have you buying a beer on Friday, which isn't a bad thing to do. I'm all for that. But maybe you want to do it willingly and not forcefully. So we came up with an idea of what we kind of call the Chef workflow. And the Chef workflow starts over here on the right, where we begin to think of things as we begin to think of our security policies and our compliance policies as code, right? So we've taken this idea of infrastructure as code, and kind of the DevOps community has started to extend it to say, what else can we treat as code? Well, we have these PDF documents, and these PDF documents are long. There's a security person over here somewhere, right? So what do? You give someone a PDF, and that's how the machine's supposed to be secured. And of course, they take that PDF document and they upload it to their server, and then they run a special command that reads the PDF document and secures the machine automatically. Right, yeah, sure, that's exactly how it works, right? PDFs aren't machine readable. So, well, I guess they are machine readable if you're a printer, right? But, you know, anyway, you all know what I mean. PDFs aren't programmatic. So how can we begin to take our compliance policies and store them in something that is more programmatic? And once we started to do that, when we move over into doing more local development of how I want to actually deploy my applications, or how I want to deploy changes to my operating systems or my infrastructure, if I'm working in the same way in the middle in my local development, if I'm doing things as code in that local development, I can very easily then take that policy, that compliance as code, and incorporate it into my infrastructure as code. So now I can actually have those tests run to actually make sure that the automation that I'm building is going to maintain compliance with the systems when I begin to push that automation out and begin to share it with other people. And so what we did is we built a suite of tools called Chef DK, and that suite of tools builds upon some open source things in the DevOps community. And it allows you to kind of really model, build, and test this automation to deploy your infrastructure and your applications before you begin to share it. So you test locally, and then you go and share it with other people. And when you test locally, you can verify with some degree of success or some degree of confidence that the changes that you're going to begin to share with other people won't break the build. And then, once you have this automation built, you then go and push it into a collaborative development environment. And that's where this tool called Chef Delivery comes in. And Chef Delivery is all about testing, provisioning, and deploying those changes that you have for your infrastructure or your applications, or even for your compliance policies, and beginning to share them out. It gives you the ability to do the rule of 4 eyes. It gives you the ability to have these tests run in an automated fashion, so that when you actually do eventually deploy it out in production, you have a higher degree of confidence that the changes you're making are going to be successful. So the idea is we call this kind of shifting quality to the right. I was going to say left because it's left for, yeah, it's left, sorry. Left, right? Everyone agree with that? Sorry. So if you shift quality to the left, so I don't know if you've seen these graphs before where it talks about where it's cheaper or more expensive to actually fix a problem. Where on this is it actually cheaper to fix the problem? And to the left. So if I can try and catch these problems before I actually have things running in production, I can actually improve the quality of the code that I'm sharing or the quality of the automation that I'm sharing. Make sense? All right, so let's see how this works in practice. All right, cool. So what I have here is a system, and I can see that the system has actually converged and it has a problem, but you're not supposed to see that yet, so let me get rid of that. So I have a machine here, or I have what's called Chef Compliance. And in Chef Compliance, I'm actually going to go and do a scan on machines to actually see what machines are meeting a compliance policy or not. And if I look at these compliance policies, remember I told you I was treating everything as code. I can drill down into these compliance policies, and while this is a UI wrapped around the compliance policy, the backing compliance policy should be stored in source control, and it should be treated the same as any other code in your environment. It should go through a continuous delivery pipeline to eventually get it into the production artifact repository for compliance rules, which in our case is Chef Compliance. So I have this rule about SSH, and if I drill down into this rule set as it is, I can see all of these different things that I need to do to harden SSH on a particular machine. Of course, most of you, hopefully everyone knows that SSH is the way for Unix-based systems that you go and log into it and begin to manipulate, right? If you don't, that's okay. You're probably an executive. Sorry for this. So, can everyone see that in the back? All right. Kinda? All right. Let me see if I can. There we go, that's a little bit better. So what I can see here is that I have a policy, I've defined it, I've given it a little bit of information, and this is the actual raw code behind the scenes. And you can see here that I've got the title, I've got the description, so I'm getting some information. So one of the most frustrating things is that when you're, I've worked in operations, I worked at Orbitz, running large e-commerce sites for travel. And one of the most frustrating things is that the security person would always catch you doing something and like, don't do that. And I'm like, why not? Because I needed to do this thing. He's like, you're not supposed to do that. I'm like, well, give me the reason why. Explain it to me, right? Give me some more information so that I'm empowered to make intelligent decisions about why this needs to be. And so what you can do here with your policies is you can provide that information right here in front of somebody's eyes so that they can see why you want to do something a certain way and that they can make intelligent decisions. The other pieces of information that you can put in here is also how do you fix it, right? So maybe I have a machine that's broken. Well, it's great if you're telling me that it's broken, but how do I actually go and fix the problem? You could also list in here maybe the Chef cookbooks that you could actually apply to go and fix the problem. And then you can see here, who's ever written Ruby tests before? A few people in the room. You'll notice that this is very similar to what's known as RSpec. So this language is called InSpec, as for infrastructure specification. And you can see here that basically I'm going to say my SSH configuration should have this setting that is equal to this value, right? So it's a very natural language way of describing. So now that I have this rule set, I can actually go and scan a machine for this rule set. So I'm going to go in here and just click a couple rule sets. click scan. It'll take a few seconds. It's going to go out to the machine. It's going to apply the compliance policy and then give me a report back of how compliant I am. Well, that's not good. I guess I have a lot of work to do. We're going to end the demo and I can actually go fix this machine here real quick. So I can see all of the different settings that I have wrong. So one, I'm allowing SSH protocol version 2, which is bad. But this other check right here is the one I want to drill down into. So I can see here that Apache is allowing directories to be indexed. So basically that means that anybody can go to a path in a browser and see all the files in that directory. And so when you have your password.txt in that directory, they can see it. And that's bad, right? The security guy over here is just like cringing. So I have a problem here that I need to fix. So let me, as somebody who discovers this problem, let me walk you through the process of how you would actually go and remediate it. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to pull up two things. I'm going to pull up an editor, and then I also have a console as well. Which console, Sean, do you know how? Already tried that. I don't see a hamburger, so I'm just gonna. Oh, right here. Those kids. Yeah, we already looked at settings. All right, we're not going to worry about it. So, since I'm working as code and I'm working in source control, the first thing that I need to do is I need to check out a branch. So I'm going to check out a branch, and I'll just call it fix HTTPD. And so now I'm working on that branch. And then the other thing that I want to do is I want to run what's called a kitchen converge. So there's this tool called Test Kitchen, and basically what Test Kitchen did earlier is it went out to a cloud-based system, or it could do it locally on local VM, or it could do private cloud, or whatever you want. It went and created a machine for me to use as kind of the base image to actually go and test how my changes to that image are going to affect it. And then once I created it, I can run a converge. And basically what this is going to do, it's going to do two things. One, it's going to configure the system the way I want it to be. And then the second thing that it's going to do is now that the machine is configured, it's going to run a set of audit policies, the same policies that I just showed earlier in the dashboard. And it's going to actually give me feedback whether or not the machine is configured the way it should be based upon my compliance policies. So you notice here, it's starting the audit phase. And I'm a bad infrastructure developer, and you can see here that I've got one failure. And of course, it throws an error. If I scroll up a little bit, which you can see that it's the same problem that I had before. The Apache configuration has option indexes in it. All right, well, looks like I need to go and fix this. So the first thing I'm going to do, just to show you that code is actually flowing through the system. That's not it. All right, so I'll save that just so you can show that things are changing. And then the other thing is I need to go in and figure out where this problem actually is. But before I do that, I need to be a good infrastructure developer or a good DevOps, and I need to increment the version of the code, right? So I'll just save that real quick. And then let's actually begin to drill down to see where this problem is. So we have this recipe, and this recipe basically installs Apache for me. So it does, it installs Apache, as you see, and then it basically changes this configuration file. It's like, oh, okay, this looks like the file that I need. So you notice over here, it's complaining about this particular file, and you can see this is where I'm actually creating this file and setting this file up. So this must be where my problem is. You can also see that it does some other things as well, like set up the default site and so forth. So this is the file that I actually need to go and fix. So let me drill down into this template and begin to fix it. Okay, so if I go and look, and then sure enough, there's option indexes right there. So that looks like the problem that I need to go and fix. So I'll save that, and then you can also see here that I've got 3 changes that I've made. If you don't, Visual Studio Code is a pretty neat editor that Microsoft's open source. If I just go and click on that, you can see that's the file before, and that's the file after. And that's the advantage of using source control to maintain anything as code, right? So now as somebody who is going back and doing an audit, they're going to have this audit trail to actually show who made this change to the web servers, when was it committed, who reviewed it, did the test pass, and so forth, right? So I'm getting this audit trail of who, what, when, where, why, and how. So that's the change. Let me actually go and see if the change fixes the problem. And of course, this is a demo. Of course, it's going to fix the problem, right? Otherwise, it would be a pretty ineffective demo. So this is going to run, it'll take a few minutes. Is this making sense? Okay. And as it runs, we'll see very quickly that it runs the audit. And we're going to see here, one, I see that it's actually changing the configuration file. So I see right up here, right here on this line, that it did actually change the configuration file. It's giving me a diff. It says, this is what the line was before, this is the line after. And so this goes into a log, and then that log goes into a system that collects all of those logs. And now, once again, I have the Git audit trail, and then I have the actual audit trail of the changes being applied to the system, and I can see that the two match, right? That's what I would want. And then I can also see here that I ran this test, and this test actually passed as well. So it looks like I'm good. This looks like a change that I want to begin to share. I've tested locally, it meets my compliance policy, the thing is no longer broken. So I'll just do a git commit. And that's going to kick off the that's going to commit those changes. You can see that over here, and I have no pending changes anymore. And then the next thing I need to do is I need to begin the process of actually sharing this with other people. And so I'm going to run a command called delivery review. And what delivery review is going to do is tell me to log in. It's going to actually submit my change up for other people to begin to look at. And so you can see here that this is the change, right? Fix the patch config, that was my message. And then it's going to kick off this process of running unit tests, linting, and syntax checks, right? So basic checks that you should be doing. I should have, in theory, ran those locally as well for time we did it. But you should run those exact same tests locally to make sure that unit, lint, and syntax is going to pass before you begin to go and share it with other people, right? So unit tests, linting, and syntax. So linting and syntax are really important to making sure that I could even upload this to a shelf server and that it would work. And then also additionally, am I following the enterprise's best practices for how my code should be written, right? 2 spaces for tabs, right, instead of 4. All of those little things that make coding a little bit better if everybody follows the same guidelines. So we'll check on all of those things. And while this is running, I can begin the code review. And I can see here, I can begin to drill down into what I actually changed. And so sure enough, in that file, I have an audit trail now that shows exactly what I changed. And I can make line level comments, and I can say, and add that comment in. It's kind of hard to see because of the resolution. I can go back, and I can also review the entire thing as well. So kind of an interesting thing is you can actually go and you can embed videos as well. So, you know, everyone wants to listen to some music while they do code review. And so I can just, right? I mean, code review can't be the funnest thing, especially depending upon whose code you're reviewing. And so you can see here, there we go. Live in Houston, sorry it's not live in Dallas. And I can play that. I've clicked play on that before and it started showing like a Target lingerie ad, so I didn't think I will never ever hit play on that again. And it was like during like a customer presentation, a customer demo. So, little pro tip there for you. Okay, so if I go back to status, I can see here that I've done my verify stage and it's passed successfully, and now it's waiting for approval. So we did our code review, everything looks good. I can say, yep, I'm ready to actually go and ship this out. And so what's gonna happen is is we're going to merge to the branch that I've specified to merge to. As Nathan said, the DevOps Kung Fu, short-lived branches, merging to master, making sure that master is always deployable. Since we follow that at Chef, we're going to merge to master. And then it's going to start a build process. Because I've merged to master, I need to run my unit, lint, and syntax again because I don't know what's in master, right? I assume that everything in master is good, and my changes will merge into master cleanly, but I don't necessarily know that the combination of the two will actually work correctly together. So I want to run unit, lint, and syntax again. And this is going to kick this process off. And then after this, it's going to actually begin the process of doing a build. And so if this was actual, in the case of a cookbook, you actually don't need to build it. Those are the artifacts that you end up pushing out. But if it was something like a Java application, then we could run all the appropriate, what is it, Maven build, right? I think that's right. Yeah, all right. And Java, right? That's the extent of my Java programming knowledge, all from like my CS 101 class. And so it's going to run this process. And then once it successfully ran that process, what's going to happen is it's going to begin to actually push it out into a test environment, or what we call an acceptance environment. So you can see here that it's publishing. Now, one thing that's really, really important when you have automation and pipelines is that you need feedback loops. You need to see what's going on. And if you don't have feedback loops, what you'll have is you'll have a low degree of trust that the pipeline is actually executing and performing the automation correctly. One feedback loop that is often there in many tools is the red-green, right? So that's a feedback. That's a sense of feedback that everything's working correctly, that checkbox. If it wasn't working correctly, it's going to give me a red X, right? But also, you might want to drill down into the feedback a little bit more. And for that, we have something called Chef Analytics. Sean's going to get on me later about you should log into all your stuff before. So I can see here that delivery went in automatically. Let me make this bigger. There we go. So you see that delivery is actually going and updating my cookbooks in the code. And so you can notice here that it updated the site DBAS cookbook, the cookbook that I was working on. And you can see that it changed the version to 0.1.32. So that's what I expect. That's what I want. That's what I just shipped. You can also see that it shipped all of the dependencies as well for this particular cookbook and uploaded them as well. Because if the dependency changed, then we need to make sure that it has the latest dependency. The other thing that I can do is drill down, and I can see that my acceptance environment was updated as well. So I can see here that, sure enough, my cookbook went from 0.1.31 to 0.1.32. And I have that feedback loop of knowing that what I'm pushing is actually progressing through the system in a sane and safe manner. So now that I've got that, I can actually go, I can see that it's deploying it right now, deployment passed, and then I can run some smoke and functional tests. I can actually make sure that the site is actually responding. I'm getting a 200 instead of a 404. I could begin to run something like Selenium tests or something like that to actually get more feedback to make sure that the system's actually working. And if I go over here to my acceptance environment, I should be able to refresh this. And you can see, sure enough, my acceptance environment was updated, and now it says hello Capital. And so now that this looks good, I can actually begin the process of delivering it. So there's two different philosophies around continuous D, and that D can stand for different things. There's continuous deployment, and there's continuous delivery. So continuous delivery, which Chef kind of thinks is the practice that most people should follow, is basically when I get to this delivered phase, doesn't necessarily mean that it's live and running in production. What it means is that I feel like I have a production-grade artifact ready. So when you're ready to take that production-grade artifact and deploy it out on the systems, the production-grade artifact has been published and it's there for deployment when you're ready to do deployment. In continuous deployment, when I hit deliver, what would actually happen is my production machines, or the machines that are in that delivery environment or the prod environment, they'll automatically get updated when that artifact is ready to go, right? So it's two different philosophies. Amazon practices continuous deployment, but for every application, it doesn't necessarily mean that that everybody is ready to do continuous deployment. So you need to choose the one that is right for you and know the differences between them. So what's going to happen here is this is actually going to deploy out to a union environment. It's going to run the exact same test. But in the union environment, what it's going to do is it's going to pull down changes from other streams. It's going to pull down changes from other acceptance pipelines. So that if I change something else, we're going to begin to test the entire set together. And I can see here that it's running the smoke and functional test, or it skipped the smoke test. It's running the functional test. It's been deployed. So I should be able to go over here to union and do a refresh. And sure enough, it's there as well. And I should also be able to see over in analytics, as things progresses through the pipeline, I can see that the environments are getting updated as well. And sure enough, union was updated, and then union, the actual running systems were updated as well. So that's what's known as the chef workflow. That's what we think of infrastructure as code and compliance as code and how everything should work in conjunction with one another. So we have about 4 minutes left before we go to lunch. Typically when you present right before lunch and you say, are there any questions? Nobody wants to ask any questions because everyone wants to go to lunch. So are there any questions? Can I answer for you? Yes.
So in your compliance world, when you build your spec, sometimes a vendor application third party might require something that invalidates your internal security standards. So is there exceptions in this show?
Yeah, so you're able to allow exceptions inside of that specification for certain machines. You can also have different rule sets depending upon what environment you would actually be doing the scan in. The important thing is you want it backed by source control, so you can see as those exceptions are made, you can see who's making them and when they were made and so forth, right? Sorry, I should have repeated the question. What? Yeah, so the question is do you have rollback or fallbacks? So there's a philosophy that rollbacks are usually typically very, very hard to do, especially when a database comes into play. So the philosophy is more of a roll forward. So instead of rolling back the build, the idea is to try and roll forward the changes that you need to actually get it working, or roll forward a change to actually turn off the feature that is actually breaking. So we're going to talk really quickly before lunch about open spaces. So I saw the show of hands earlier, but let's get the show of hands again. How many people have done open spaces? Nice. All right, so open spaces are going to be maybe a little bit scary. But open spaces are also going to be really, really amazing. So if you have on your badge, it says open spaces, basically what's going to happen is after lunch, you'll go into the room next door, and then I'll be in there to kick things off. And basically all that we're going to do is we're going to have people propose topics for the afternoon. We're going to write on a Post-it note the topic that you want to talk about, that you care about. We're going to break into maybe 3 or 4 circles depending upon how many people we have in the room. And basically we'll have 3 or 4 talking sessions going where we all get together in a group and we talk about that particular topic and how you solve that particular topic, or even if you don't have a solution, the things that concern you about that particular topic. And then the idea is that hopefully inside of that circle, there will be somebody with an idea of how to solve that problem. They can give their philosophy on it. The other really super interesting thing is how many people in the room are not from Cap 1? Right, so there you go, Cap 1 people and the people not from Cap 1, you get to begin to share information between your different organizations, right? You know, of course, the security people is going to be there and like, that's IP, you shouldn't talk about that, right? So maybe we can find a security open space for you, like maybe over here in the corner. Or we get you some earmuffs, yeah. So that's what's going to happen in the afternoon. It's super exciting and super fun. So come with an open mind, come with and come with some good ideas as well. So start thinking about those ideas, and then we'll put them on the board and we'll sort them out after lunch. Thank you.